Well, the election cycle that seemed like it would never end technically still hasn't. A recount is currently underway in Wisconsin with additional challenges in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Joining us now to discuss her push for the recounts is Green Party presidential nominee Dr. Jill Stein. Dr. Stein, you say that your goal here is not to change the results of the election, but to ensure the accuracy of the count. My question is, why then did you choose 3 states that Mr. Trump won narrowly, but not a state that Secretary Clinton won much more narrowly, New Hampshire, which she won by only 3,000 votes?
We didn't go into New Hampshire mainly because the deadline for filing a recount had passed. But in fact, at the time that we launched the recount, 2 of the states had gone to Donald Trump. Michigan was still uncertain as to which direction it would go. And as far as I'm concerned, if we do find evidence that there's a systemic problem here with these machines, which are extremely unreliable, prone to error and human error and machine error, as well as to hacking and security breaches. If we find evidence that there is a systemic problem, we need to expand the recount. In my view, that's what the American voters are calling for, an election result and a voting system that we can have confidence in.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Stein. Do you know the largest switch of votes in a recount in American political history?
Well, I can tell you one, for example, in Toledo in 2004, there were 90,000 votes that were marked blank, which were discovered actually not to be blank at all, and those when a hand recount was done. And that would have been enough to have changed the outcome in Ohio. Unfortunately, that wasn't found until after the election was already
called. Let me tell you, the biggest actual switch of votes in any election in U.S. history was back in 2000, when roughly 1,200 votes were switched from Bush to Gore. We're talking about 3 states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, that Donald Trump won by more than 10,000 votes. There's not a chance in the world here, Dr. Stein, that the vote is going to change in those 3 states.
Chris, actually in Michigan, there are 75,000 votes which are blank, which are sky high compared to all other past elections. They are concentrated in Detroit. That's 75,000 votes, which may very well be machine error or human error. That is about 7 times the margin of difference in Michigan. So these results could in fact change the outcome, but we don't know that until we actually examine the evidence, and that means a hand recount of the ballots. That is going forward.
It's never happened. There's never been a 70,000 vote switch. The most there's ever been is 1,247. Let me ask you.
That's actually not true. If the recounts were done in time, they could affect 90,000, and in fact, in Detroit, there could very well be 75,000.
I'm talking, Dr. Stein, about recounts that actually happen, not ones that could have happened.
That's because we don't do them, and in fact, we should do them. That's how we ensure that we have a system we can trust. And right now, as you know, Chris, cynicism and distrust is running wild. We need to address the fundamental concerns that the American voters are expressing.
Dr. Stein, let's talk about what a lot of people think is the real point here, and that is, let's take a look at how much money you raised in your presidential runs. In 2012, you raised $893,000 in your presidential campaign. In 2016, $3.5 million. But for this recount, you've raised more than $6.5 million from almost 140,000 donors. Isn't that what this is really about, Dr. Stein, using this recount to raise lots of money and build your list of supporters?
Let's be very clear. This money is going strictly into a segregated account which can only be spent on the recount. So this money is will be completely used, and we'll be lucky if we can cover the costs at the rate that there is a bait and switch going on here. In Wisconsin, we just saw the costs triple. So to my mind, it really underscores why we need a fundamentally secure voting system that has built-in safeguards, that should have automatic audits, recounts. We need to get rid of these voting machines, these electronic touch screens, which have been proven highly vulnerable to tampering, to hacking, to human and machine errors.
So the fact that you have 140,000 donors is purely coincidental, Dr. Stein?
Well, put it this way. The American people have made it very clear what they want done here. Chris, coming out of this election,
wait. I don't think the American people... Wait, where do you get off saying the American people... Where do you get off saying that the American people are calling for this? I think the vast majority of the American people think we should accept the result of the election.
80% of Americans said that they were disgusted with this election. And we know that about 90% of Americans
it may have been the choice they had. I don't think it was the system or a demand for a recount.
This is a time that people have an entire loss of faith in our political institutions. The way that the money is coming in from small donors makes it very clear. And in fact, a poll just last week showed the American people support the recount and that they feel that if Donald Trump was in the reverse position, he would be doing exactly the same thing. Remember, he said that it was a rigged system and that he was not going to accept the result. So he has articulated what many Americans feel. It's time to respect the views of the American voter and ensure that we have a voting system.
Well, some would say that the views of the American voter were that Donald Trump was elected president. You've now decided
well, remember what the voters said by the Electoral College, not by
if I may ask my question, Dr. Stein,
vote.
you've now decided to go to the federal court to try to get a recount in Pennsylvania after the state court said that you would have to post, or your supporters would have to post, $1 million bond, and you said they can't afford that. You're going to hold a news conference tomorrow in front of Trump Tower. What's he got to do with it?
We want to hold this conference where America will see that we are standing up for everyday Americans who do not have confidence in this election system, who have lost confidence actually in our political system. And we are standing up loud and strong to say that we will not be intimidated. We will not be frightened by having to jump through all these legal hoops. We say, what is Donald Trump frightened of? Because he is obstructing, he is delaying these cases.
How many votes did you get? Dr. Stein, how many votes did you get in this election?
Excuse me, how many votes did Donald Trump get? He got about 2.5 million less votes.
He got 62.5 million votes.
Less votes than Hillary Clinton. So I think the American people are owed an actual explanation here of what is going on.
Dr. Stein, could you answer the question?
You do not know until you look at the evidence.
How many votes did you get?
I am not going to be the beneficiary of this one way or the other. That's why I can do this, because I am a nonpartisan.
But he got 62.5 million votes. How many did you get? I mean, the question really is who's speaking for American voters, him or you? This is not
about Donald Trump. It's not about Hillary Clinton. It's not about my campaign. It's not about Gary Johnson. This is about the American voters who deserve to have a voting system we can trust. When something like 75,000 votes in Detroit may in fact be an error, because why would people come out in Detroit, fill in all the other positions but not vote for president?
Dr. Stein,
this is a little bit suspicious. We deserve to know what's going on, because that could in fact change the outcome of the vote in Michigan.
The third presidential debate, Dr. Stein, I asked Donald Trump whether he would accept the result of the election and the principle of the peaceful transfer of power. Here's what he said. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris, let me respond to that, because that's horrifying. You know, every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him.
Dr. Stein, at that time, a lot of liberals' heads exploded because Donald Trump wouldn't accept the results of the election. Aren't you doing precisely that right now? Aren't you doing exactly what Hillary Clinton called horrifying?
I am not here to help Hillary Clinton or to express her point of view. In my view, the recount should have happened in the Democratic primary as well, where there were also very suspicious results, where voters appeared to be stripped from the rolls in Brooklyn, where hundreds of thousands of votes went uncounted in California. This is not about helping Democrats. It's not about helping Republicans.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you what, that's not the question I asked you, Dr. Stein. I asked you why not accept the results of the election, because what you're doing is exactly what Hillary Clinton said was horrifying.
I don't care what Hillary Clinton thinks about this, and I care what the voters think about this, not what the politicians or the pundits or the party operatives think about this. This is about responding to the American voters who are standing up and saying we deserve an election system that we can trust and that is accurate, that is secure against hacking, against human error, against machine error, and that in which the votes are being counted. Because right now it's not clear that all the votes are being counted. We deserve care
Dr.
of that
Stein?
so we can go forward with an election system that we can trust.
Dr. Stein, thank you. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll stay on top of the recount.